Today, we know that there are many inequalities in the world, whether they are social, economic, or other inequalities. They are present today, and we must ensure that everyone is aware of this issue. It is estimated that today in the world, 985 million people live on less than $1 or 0.75 euro per day. Half the workers in the world earn less than $2 a day. The global enrollment rate rose from 84% to 89% in primary education and from 59% to 73% in secondary education between 2000 and 2012. Therefore, access to education is increasing, but the data hides persistent differences between countries and even within a country. So, we ask our service how social work can respond to this problem and who are these actors who work every day to make a change. Today we welcome Leila Margaux, CESF in a social establishment. Hello, Ms. Tawil.
Hello, good morning everyone. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. We are pleased to welcome you here today to discuss these inequalities that persist in your territory and what you, at your level, can put in place to combat them. So, let's start by talking about your profession. What is a CESF today?
It is true that it's a profession that is a little known to the public. If you ask someone on the street if they know what is a CESF, I'm not sure they will be able to answer you. We are in fact social workers whose core business is based on expertise in the areas of daily life. So it goes from consumption to housing, but also social and professional integration, or food and health.
Indeed, we can say that you are a little handyman.
It is true that we have expertise in many areas, which allows us to intervene on different topics.
So, how can you at your level fight or at least try to better understand inequalities and fight against those who you encounter?
I find it daring to say that I fight against social inequalities alone, but it is true that we have today several tools to allow us to better understand those inequalities.
So, tell us a little more about these work tools.
First of all, our professional training means that we have a wealth of knowledge in a wide variety of fields. Therefore, we can set up adapted activities that will reach an audience with specific issues. And for example, being able to hold a workshop on digital tools, because today access to many services depends on being able to make or do with the internet and being able to do things online. So for some audiences, more than others, this can be very complicated for them.
Okay, I see where you're going with this. It is true that in the digital age, many people who do not fully master the computer tools are forgotten.
Yes, also on access to employment, for example, because we can now lead workshops for writing covers later or creating CVs with audiences who are sometimes disconcerting when it comes to writing. So the goal is to be able to provide them with the best possible support and to enable them to acquire new skills so that they may enter to the labor market like many other people.
Oh yes, I understand. It is true that there are small ones that we will not necessarily think about. We will know as the public if any of them have any questions.
Yes, I wanted to know, since the heart of your job is based on an expertise in everyday life, what are you doing concretely to reduce the inequalities in the daily lives of the people you accompany?
That's a very good question. If I take food as an example, many people today, because of these inequalities, end up with a rather limited budget when it comes to grocery shopping. They find themselves having to turn to cheaper products and therefore of less good nutritional qualities. The goal of our job is to be able to offer the public recipe with affordable food that still respect the necessarily nutritional intakes. It's learning to enjoy yourself and eat healthy even on a small budget.
That's a very good answer. Another question?
Hello, I find your job really interesting and I wanted to know what can you do about health because it's a serious subject, right? It is true that despite all our skills, we are not doctors. So the goal is not to take the place of a doctor, but more to raise awareness on different topics that affect health. For example, we can implement a preventive action by involving different professionals to raise awareness on different subjects as smoking, alcohol consumption, a diet that is too fat or too sweet, for example. Moreover, sometimes inequalities make even access to health information impossible. So it is then important to be able to bring and explain the information to the public, whether it is around contraception, for example, or also the consumption of illicit substances, for example.
Okay, thank you. Any other question?
Hello. What do you mean by action, which is a project?
No, sometimes it's not necessarily something huge or very elaborate. Like it may just be to accompany a person in new steps to make them maybe discover other professionals, other services which he is entitled to, or simply to refer him to another professional who maybe can answer his problem more than I can do. So fighting against inequalities is not necessarily wearing a Superman costume.
You're right.
Yes, yes, but to come back to the question, it is true that we sometimes coordinate projects or actions.
Okay. Does anyone have another question?
Yes, I did. I want to know if it wasn't tiring to have to work alone. Well, I want to say that it's rare that a structure has several CESF, so it must not be simple for you to be the only one of your profession. It is true that sometimes I must explain the study that I have followed, but it is important to know that we rarely work alone. Like, even though I'm the only CESF in my structure, the goal is to always encourage teamwork to ensure that the needs of the public concerned are adequately met. Moreover, to reduce inequalities, working in partnership is extremely important because since inequalities affect everyone, all the actors have to be involved and they must be invested to fight them. So this concerns the government, the department, the local representative, the association, or the other structures of the sector, but also the inhabitants themselves.
Well, here's a full answer. I think we'll be able to stop here for today and leave you alone. You have perfectly answered the questions that were put to you, and I thank you for it.
Oh, it is I who thank you for having me a second time, and I thank the public for participating. Bye.